Well, hi guys, how you doing? Welcome to the session. My name's Paul, this is Plan Z. Happy New Year's, my first video of the year 2022. I've finally got all my patches that I've been talking to you about. If you're subscribed to the channel, thank you. Hopefully your year's started very well. What we're starting to do now is dive a bit deeper into the amps, and this is going to be like a part one of the twin bank. If you've got a GT1000, you know we've got 250 patches that we can save as our own user patches. That's 50 banks of 5 patches. Okay, so I've got 20 banks set aside where I've got all 20 of the amps set out like this, where the first 3 patches, 1, 2, 3, are, as you know, you've been following the sessions. We're going to have a quick look at this in the twin in just a moment, but then we've got 2 extra patches here, 4 and 5, where I'm setting up special effects. And I think what we'll probably do is start out by I'm flitting around. What we'll do is let's go into this patch here and just, for anyone who's not subscribed, get orientated. So the guitar signal comes in, and here at the front end I've got some drives. So I've got a boost where in this patch I'm using the Klon Centaur drive on 0. Tone is up to about 7, the level is up at about 75, bottom at 0, a bit of the direct mix coming through. Next to that I've got a fuzz. Now when I kick on the fuzz, I have my noise gate come on, and this noise gate is set to noise gate input or noise suppressor input. Now there's always going to be a bit of noise, it's a fuzz, you're never going to completely cut that off, but setting it this way helps the fuzz breathe. I've been struggling. One of the reasons why I put fuzzes into the first 2 patches is it's difficult to get right, and I think this is helping me get to a better place, but we'll hear in this jam in a minute once we've got things set up. So that's what's happening before we hit this divide here, where I've got a synth in there if I want to use it, but here I've got 2 amps. When this button is blue, we've got a low gain amp. When this button is red, we've got a medium gain amp. And when this button goes red, this medium gain amp becomes a high gain amp. Okay, so what that sounds like, let's bring up the gain pot. One Gibson Les Paul. I put all 3 of my guitars through the same patches though, so we'll get the telly and the P90s on this in a minute. So gain pot all the way up. Pulling it back to about 8. Gain pot on full. Pulling it back to clean up. So this is the medium gain. Okay, so what's going on is I've got on the medium gain pot 70, sag on 9, resonance at 5, got the level at 40. The bass is at 40, the treble at 60. The mids at 60. The treble is at 57, presence at 60, and the bright switch is on. I've got a noise suppression after this that is set to input. Okay, release at 30, threshold at 60. Helps the amp breathe. And in this EQ, if you're following, I do my low cut. So at the end of this EQ, we've got the low cut 125. I'm going to make that 125 now. I take out some of the 500, take out some of the 315 on a tighter Q, and adjust the level to gain stage it. In the last EQ I deal with the high cut, so I'm high cutting to 8. Take out some of 5K, take out some of 4K, and here I don't need to adjust the level, it was fine, just I cut a little bit at bottom and I boosted a little bit at tops because I cut a bit. But it's only a small cut here at 5K, I'm only taking out 2 dB I think it is, on a tight Q. And then in the middle EQ, this is kind of the one that gives me the flavour. So I'm pushing a little bit of 125 on a wide Q, but only a couple of dB. But at 615, I'm boosting 3 dB on a wide Q. Okay, so let's bring that gain pot back up to about 8. Now, that signal after the amp and EQ comes straight out into 2 notes cab M here. So if you're not following me, you won't know that we're listening to the 2 notes cab M. We've got one on each output for the main out. My main out is set to line out, and here I've got all the mic level turned off, but all the direct all the direct level going out. So going out line level to 2 notes. Where I've got a 57 on the right and a ribbon 121 on the left. Okay. Then we have our wet channels, and this is what our focus is today. So in this first wet channel, this is coming out of my sub outs, which has got GT1000 cab sim on it, where I'm just using a 412 flat mic, medium distance, center of the mic. And all of them are set like this, unless in the special effects patches I want to get a different tone out of it. I'll use the cabinets to get the tone on the reverbs and things, okay? I've got a slight trem after the reverb to give a little bit of extra movement to it. And then I've got the reverb. Now the reverb is set completely wet and is a spring reverb, where when I extend the expression switch, we get level and time increased, and when we pull it back, the time and the level comes back a bit. There's also a slight adjustment here in the high damp, where I take off a bit of high damp when it comes back. Okay, so now we know, let me just save that. Now we know that's how we're laid out. This patch is more or less the same, different reverbs and things happening, but it's set to stereo. So I've got 2 amps in here, where we've got a low gain and a medium gain. We've got 2 amps split to stereo. We can go left right with that. Okay, then we've got the same arrangement in this patch, but we've got a medium gain with the gain pushed and a high gain. Now, one of the things I want to dive into is effects change. So we've got basically what, 1, 2, 3 different gain stages there, plus drives and boosts. We've got in these 2 patches, we've got, you know, that's another 4 amps, 8 gain stages in total. And here we've got special effects patches. So let's go into this one first, and I've got it set up to do a very specific job to start with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the loopers, and I'm going to take my loop, and then I'm going to show you what I'm doing with the patch and how I intend to use it as the jam progresses. Okay, so let's go put that up. Let's get this here. Take a loop. Okay, now I've got my loop. We're going to look at the patch, and I intend to do different things. So before we actually dive in, let's turn off everything that I've got on here, and just here, underneath all of that, I've got a clean twin. Okay, we come in, we hit the divide, we've got an amp on each side, a noise gate after the amp on each side, then those amp signals come out into another divide where I'm splitting the signal, and everything above 160 Hz is going into the A channel, and everything below 160 Hz is going into the B channel, where I've got an EQ and a compression on what's happening below 180 Hz. So when I'm clean, I've just got consistent low end. But when I engage the octave, it really helps me there. And this compressor is set as a limiter, got none of the direct mix coming through. but all the threshold is down, so I'm really compressing the hell out of it. All the attack is up, and the level is to balance it. Okay. Now I want this sound to get to where I got it to, which is here, to get a bit more spunk to it. So before I add a fuzz, what we've got is we've got a chorus on the octaver. So the octaver is running completely wet, 100%, none of the dry level coming through. But at the end of the chain here, we've got a chorus on, which is giving us that stereo feel, synth bass type sound. Okay, but I've got it on this channel and not the lows to keep the lows nice and clean, because I'm actually going to mess with them by sticking, I put a phaser on after the amp. So what I do is I engage this button here, and you'll notice on both channels things get engaged. I'll talk you through that in a moment. So in this channel, a phaser comes on where I'm running it, I think it's an 8 stage. I can't really see the screen from where I am, but I'm using the step effect. Okay, and I'm using the separation, so it's got some of the stereo field being played with. Okay, the effect level is quite low and the direct mix is quite high. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this effects level up to 30, I think. Now it's a very subtle thing. If I take it off, okay, you can hear how it's colouring it. Alright, so then the next thing was my wets. So the wets in here, I'm using a Terror Echo, and when I open this up, the divider here has got the B channel, none of the frequencies that I'm managing here, so everything below 160 Hertz is taken away because I don't want it muddying up the mix. So what happens is when I've got the expression switch on the GT1000 with the heel up, the spread time is being maxed. Okay, and what that gives us is this. Okay, so it's very quiet, very subtle. When I pull the heel back, it takes away all of the spread time, yeah? Which, when we use the other part of this patch, it becomes really effective. So I'm just going to turn those wets off for a moment and engage the fuzz. So what we've got to spice this up is, before the amp, I'll pop a fuzz in here, and I'm just using 60s fuzz, not driving it too hard. There's the settings. But I am importantly taking out quite a lot of the bottom, and I'm letting some of the dry mix come through, so I've got the dry bass signal in there. So let's engage it. Okay, now things have really changed. What I might do is look at the level of that. I might pull the level back but the fuzz up. But first off, let's just hear how it sounds when I bring, so let's bring it in with the beat. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the bass line, hopefully they're not clashing, and I might just leave this at this level. In the mix in here it feels like a good level, on its own it felt quite harsh. But let's go, I'm going to bring in the bass. Yeah, I think that sounds quite cool. They're not clashing, there's no distortions coming. I'm going to leave that like that for a little moment. So then what happens is, as you noticed, when I hit this button, things happened on the B channel. So let's turn all this off again and let's talk about the B channel. How I get to the B channel is with this button here. So we're now in this channel where I've got another twin set up. But before that twin, we've got a mono kind of version of what's happening up here before the amp, okay? Using a different rate, but still using the step effect. The settings will be different. I'll just scroll through those settings because, you know, you can set that to taste. Alright. So what then happens is we've got our twin, which is just, you know, set up in a similar way to the other twins. But here I've got a metal zone. So let's just engage that with the step effect. So I want the guitar sound at this point to go crazy in the tune, with much further into the tune when I will come back to this patch to use this. So what we're going to do is, just to kind of give you an idea, is I just want to, this metal zone is got none of the direct mix, all of the bottom is kind of intact, level at 50 I think, just boost the tone a little bit and the drive a little bit to get this sound. Now obviously that's going through all of this again, but what I then play with is here in the wets. So in the wets, just going to engage this, and we're going to start off with the heel back, so all the spread time off. So let's, without the reverb, sounds like this. With the reverb. Okay, so now the distortion's on, you can really hear the difference of that spread time. And you can do some crazy things with this now. Every time you move this, it will react to what you've done. So yeah, so you know, you could use that to effect or not. But what I wanted to show you with this is now I'm going to leave it up on the full spread, and I'm going to introduce the delay. Now what's going to happen if we just turn this off for a moment? At the moment we can hear that the terror echo is responding to the guitar hit. So you hear the guitar hit and then the echo. When I put the delay on, it's going to be bouncing off the delay. So we're going to hear the guitar hit, and then if you're in headphones you'll hear on the right side the delay, and then all around us you'll hear the echo after that. So 2, 1, 2. Okay, so that's what's happening with that delay, and it's just set to a time of 500, frequency, feedback at 0, a bit of a high cut on it but not too much, but the level is up quite high. I could just use a simple delay for this, I think. What have I got? Oh no, I'm using the stereo to get it. So stereo 1 is giving me the delay in the right side, okay? So I'm going to leave that like that. So how I intend to use that is, let's go back to it now sounding crazy. So let's say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in what we've done, but I've got an extra bass, synth bass in there that's quite heavy. So it's going to sound quite heavy when we start. So I'm just going to get going, and then I'm going to show you kind of how I intend to introduce the octave. Bring down the level of that I've recorded now to a place where I would want it in the mix, and I'm going to leave the patch up at that upper level because I'm going to solo with it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to leave this patch as it was for the first sound I did. We're going to save it. Okay, you might think, Paul, what the fuck are you doing? I thought we were looking at twins, but we're also looking at effects in these deep dives. We're going to be exploring lots of different things, hopefully. So that's that patch there, okay? So I'm going to go into the patch that's next to it now. And what I've got here when I hit this button, I've got my twin. It's a clean twin. Let's bring this gain pot up. This is a low gain, medium gain. Now we've got a wet channel. When the heel is up, we've got all of the wet channel using the overtones. So I'm just going to pull the heel back on the expression switch. And now I'm completely dry. What's going on? Let's go into the patch. We come in, we hit the divide immediately. And on the B channel, you'll notice I've got the volume swell. So I can't just bring it in. Let's just come here so you can see what's happening there. It's just the volume level. Okay. So when this button is engaged, I've got my wets, and here I've got just dry. But when I hit this button, I get just wet. Now what I've done is I've put an EQ here dealing with high-low cuts. So I'm doing a slightly different cuts to how I would do on the guitar amp. I want to create a slightly different space. So my high cut is higher, my low cut is lower. That one's cut to 125. Here I'm taking out 315 on a wide Q just a little bit, and I'm taking out 500 on a Q of 2, quite a chunk of it, and then doing the gain stage. And then after that, obviously we've got an overtone, where these are my levels. Got none of the direct, none of the unison coming through. There is a distortion block here. We'll talk about that in a moment. And then we hit a divide. And what I'm doing at this divide is I'm sending it through stereo. I'm sending it out left, right, and then spreading the field. I then put a delay, and I'm using the pitch shifter, but I've got the first pitch down to -12, but the level isn't up. Let's bring that up. You can hear how it's filled up slightly more of that left side. So I'm just going to pull this back to about here for a moment. Oh, sorry, gone too far. But really what I am doing, I'm using this fine tune here, is where I've really got my action happening, okay? But it's very subtle, and that's going into a delay. So when I hit, there's a very subtle delay happening. I say subtle because of the reverb, it's kind of being drowned at the moment, but the level is up quite high, you'll see here, okay? Now these are then going into the reverb, where I'm just using a plate, and then that is going into a phaser, where the modulation that you can hear, if you're in headphones, you can hear modulation happening. That's happening because of what's happening here and what's happening there, okay? Very subtle. And then I've got my compressor here just helping me level things, okay? So I'm using like a mastering compressor here, so very different to the other patch where I'm limiting. Here I'm using a soft compressor, okay? I should mention, actually, I've just remembered something. What I'm going to do, I don't think I just want to come into here, and I just want to show you something with the compressor in this first patch while I remember it. I ended up on the bass, the X bass comp, yeah? So experiment. Don't always take for read. Bass players use guitar effects all the time. Look at bass effects, they can be useful to you. So what I'm going to do, how I plan to use this, is if it was on the floor I could do something more complicated, but I'm going to use my hand. So I'm just going to keep it simple and just bring in some chords over the top of what we already put in. So let's go. Going to take a loop. Okay, so now we've got that in. Before we go, let's just turn that off for a second. I did mention there's a distortion block in here. Now what I put in there is keeping things nice and clean for me, but I could grit it up a little bit. So here what I've done is added just a bit of distortion, you'll hear. Now I've used the fuzz again to get to this. You can make that go a bit more crazy and just pull the level back here. Now that could be quite nice in my mix there. Let's hear what we put in. And I just think that if I put that distortion on this part, there might be too much distortion happening at the points at which the other line is punching. So I've left it clean for here, but that's something that's quite nice for in here. Now let's get this up and running. What we've got, let's go into our clean pack, put on a little bit of reverb, and just come in with a low gain twin. Gain pot is up. Sorry about the playing there, I was thinking about getting the telly, so let's do that. Now hopefully this is in tune. I'm actually missing a string. I've got some new strings arriving tomorrow. They've taken weeks to bloody get here. But yeah, we can at least tone check it. So let's do the same thing, but on the telly, neck pot on full. To the medium gain. Pull back that gain pot. Gain pot on about 8. High gain. Gonna pick up the P90. Staying on the high gain, coming in on the neck pickup. On some effects, try this. Okay, let's take a loop of that. So we've got that in. Let's get the Les Paul again. I mean the humbuckers, they're both Les Pauls. Just gonna come up the middle with we're on a medium gain, low gain. rolling all the tone off, putting the gain pot back. Bringing the tone back up. Just a slap back reverb on the neck. So I've left my reverb, my delay was overhanging there, that's what that is. I'm just going to pull it back so it comes away from the mix. I'm going to go into that patch, stick on the verb. Forgot to turn the octaver off. Sorry, I'm having a hand faff getting the looper lined up. Okay, so that sound checks those 3 patches, and in here we've had a look at how we can kind of make some crazy effects that aren't anything like a twin. So yeah, hopefully you found that interesting. The part 2 to this video will be the deep dive into these 3 patches. Let's look at the gains, how they're set up, let's pull them about a little bit. Hopefully you found this interesting. By the way, the 2 notes cab sim we use there is the Twin 77 in a 6L6. I'll catch you later. Bye bye.